Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Just a quick shout out to the T5 peeps: Bob the Dragon, Cat Crab Lobster, Data Magnet, Dark Machine, Bezic, Try Again 95, Pudic Yol, Astrea the Dreamer, Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Athelia, Meridian 117, and Jordan Bucksmorm. Thank you very much. A Friend in Need, written by C-SPAN. Use varies for gravity assist, the computer said. Cut your travel time and fuel costs by 11.6%, the computer said. No appreciable navigation hazards, the computer said. Idiot that I am, I followed the computer's advice. Now, here I am, crash-landed on the most battle-scarred planet in the galaxy, with no communications equipment and half an attack drone occupying what's left of my engine. It turns out flying straight through the middle of the largest debris cloud ever is a bad idea. Actually, who would have thought? I'm gonna die here. Varys IV wasn't the most hospitable planet before the walls, and it's actively hostile now. I'm not actually sure if there's anything left living on its surface, but if there is, I sure don't want to meet it. I have no way to call for help, no way to fix my engine, and I can't even go outside for more than 3 hours without the atmosphere melting my space-rated EVA suit. It was at this point that something banged loudly on the exterior airlock. Because of course it did. The universe loves to add insult to injury. So now instead of suffocating a few days from now, I'll instead die in 5 minutes, ripped apart by some remnant of a long-finished war. Just my luck. Come to think of it, that banging was oddly rhythmic. I'm no expert on weapon mechanics or mutant biology, or spaceflight apparently, but I feel that something trying to crack my ship in two and eat me would be doing more than rhythmically banging on the hatch. I cautiously grabbed a wrench and hit the outer hull twice in rapid succession. The banging stopped. Then there were 2 answering bangs, a pause, and a renewed banging on the airlock. Okay, so whatever was doing the banging was at least intelligent enough to call and respond, and wanted me to come over to the airlock. Seeing no better options at the moment, I made my way over to the airlock. Spaceships generally don't have many windows, but there was a small porthole embedded in both the inner and outer airlock doors, so I could at least catch a glimpse of my new companion. Getting into position where the portholes aligned and I could actually see outside was difficult, as my entire ship was canted at a precarious angle. But with the help of my secondary hind limbs, I managed, balancing awkwardly on a now useless control console. I steeled myself and looked outside. My first thought was that I was looking at some gigantic black-lidded eye, and I almost ran away there and then. However, upon closer inspection, I realized I was actually looking at the helmet of a black environment suit, with the pupil of an eye actually being the visor. Mutant bioweapons can't make environment suits, so I was looking at someone sentient. I may actually make it out of this alive. The figure noticed me at around the same time I noticed it, and they quickly backed away from the airlock door, waving an upper appendage at me. I mimicked the motion, not quite sure what else to do. It was apparently the right move, as the figure moved back to the outer door of the airlock and proceeded to write on the window. Thank the stars for my implants, as I would have no idea what it said without a translator. Not that the message made much sense. What was radio 43.5 MHz supposed to mean anyway? It took me longer than I would like to admit, but I realized that my visitor wanted me to tune my short-range radio to 43.5 MHz. I had completely discounted the radio in my assessment of my communications equipment, as it only had a range of a few kilometers in atmosphere, but it may now be my savior. I fervently hoped that it was still working. It was, thank the stars, and I tuned to the requested frequency and said in a timid, "Hello?" There was no response for a few terrifying seconds, and then, "Hey there, looks like you could use some help." It wasn't an Aralash, of course, but the implants were wonderful things that translated audio as well as they did text. My savior was apparently speaking something called human Chinese. I tried to remember everything I could about humans, so I didn't accidentally anger my savior with a cultural blunder and cause them to leave. Okay, I'm pretty sure humans are bipedal and breathe nitrogen. I really should have paid more attention in class. Guess I'm just gonna have to wing it. Hoping that I wasn't somehow disparaging the humans' ancestors through subtext, I toggled the radio and responded, "Help would be greatly appreciated. I've got no long-range communications equipment and no way to repair my engine." There was a brief pause before a response. "I figured as much. Are you able to come outside? My home is about 2 hours away, and we can get you help from there." 2 hours was worryingly close to the projected suit melt time, but it didn't really seem like I had any better options. I retoggled the radio and said, "I've got a space-rated EVA suit that my ship's computer says will last about 3 hours in this atmosphere. Will that be enough?" The response came quickly, and my implants oh so helpfully informed me that the tonal analysis indicated that my would-be rescuer was concerned. "That's not ideal, that's for sure. Normally I would just leave you here and go back and call for help myself, but the attack drone you crashed into is currently eating your ship to try and self-repair, and I don't think that we have that kind of time." Well, that was bad news. I checked, and sure enough, hull integrity status near the engine bay was markedly lower than it was when I crashed. I couldn't actually see the drone myself, but the numbers didn't lie. If I didn't leave here soon, I would die. Flicking the switch on the radio, I said, "I think you're right. I'm going to get suited up and exit the airlock as quickly as I can, if that's all right with you." The response came almost immediately. "Copy that." Suiting up was usually a 2-hour-long process, but I'd been flying alone for long enough that I was able to manage it on my own, though not without difficulty. My suit up and exit time certainly wouldn't be breaking any speed records, but it was at least before now inevitable hull failure. Clambering awkwardly out of the airlock, I finally got a good look at my rescuer. I was right. Humans were bipedal. My savior had only 2 upper limbs, but that may have been the normal amount for humans. I couldn't make out much beyond the basic body shape because they were completely covered in the same black environment suit that encased their head. Definitely a strange-looking species, but not the strangest I'd seen. They looked at me for a moment before beckoning me towards a small vehicle with an upper limb. I realized that I hadn't set my suit radio to the proper frequency, and hastily did so, before pointing out the obvious. "I'm not going to fit inside there." While the vehicle did have 2 seats, they were obviously designed for humans, whose bodies apparently bent in ways mine did not. My savior seemingly realized the same thing, as he said, "Yeah, I noticed that too. I think your best bet is to ride in the back." The vehicle had a flat bed with short sidewalls, presumably for hauling cargo. It wouldn't be the most comfortable ride, but it would work. I clambered into the back of the vehicle and watched with interest as my rescuer got inside and turned it on. Bipedal creatures were so strange. It seemed like they would fall down all the time. I have no idea why they didn't just have more legs. All of that active balancing looked exhausting. But who was I to judge? Soon enough, we were on the move. We rode in silence for a while before my rescuer broke the silence, saying, "I just realized I never properly introduced myself. My name is Socks. What's yours?" Translators were good at many things, but personal names were not one of them. For that reason, a lot of individuals opted to have a second name that was easily translatable now in order to facilitate communications. Mine was Parsley, and I said as much. "Nice to meet you, Parsley. Where were you headed for before you crashed?" "Varus 3, actually, on a business trip." "Well, you're in luck, my friend. I think we've got a ship headed for Varus 3 today to pick up some supplies. I'm sure they can find a bit of room for you." This was good news indeed. Normally, you'd just be forced to wait for a ship to come by in a rescue scenario. Something that would take weeks if you were lucky. The fact that I would be off of this wretched planet before the day was over was a welcome relief. But it did raise an interesting question. "Socks, do you live here by choice? I assumed that you were either stuck or exiled here. But if you're sending out crewed vessels for supplies, surely you would leave at any time. And you said, 'we.' Are you implying that there's a whole community here?" They laughed before saying, "Slow down there, Parsley. You sound like a kid. Yeah, me and a couple other folks are here by choice. It's actually not so bad if you don't mind the acid lakes, hunter-killer drones, radiation, weaponized bioforms, and the storms. My response, I think, was perfectly natural. But why? Why live on such an obviously hostile planet when there's much more habitable ones in the same system? Socks sighed before saying, "Yeah, a lot of reasons. Some people lived here before the war and refused to move. Some people are here to try and heal some of the scars left by the war, turn the planet habitable again. Some are just here for their isolation, as a way to get away from the crowded flow of society at large." "And you, Socks? Why are you here?" "I'm keeping a promise I made to a friend a long time ago. She's dead now, but the promise still stands." My condolences." "It's all right, she died a long time ago." This was clearly a sensitive subject, so I decided to stop talking. No point in digging out old wounds just to satisfy my curiosity. The rest of the ride progressed in relative silence, interrupted only when I asked a question about the feature of the landscape, and Socks informed me with the horrifying weapon that had caused it. In that manner, the rest of the journey progressed quickly. When we arrived at the small town where Socks lived, I was surprised to see that it was above ground. Sure, it was a series of interconnected reinforced biodomes, but I was expecting an underground bunker or something of the like. Socks, who had been quiet for a while now, suddenly spoke. "I talked to the guys running the cargo ship, and they said they'd be happy to take you to Varus 3. They're leaving in about 20 minutes, though, so no time for me to give you the tour." They drove me to the cargo ship, a dated-looking model that had clearly seen some use. The crew of 2 was standing outside, and they introduced themselves as Wheelbarrow and Persimmon. My EVA suit was flashing several integrity warnings at this point, and I was anxious to get inside the ship. But first, I needed to talk to Socks. "Thank you so much for rescuing me. I don't have much, but you're welcome to whatever remains of my ship as payment." Socks responded immediately. "No need for payment, friend. I'm happy to help. If you want to bring the salvage crew down here and get your ship, go for it." He paused for a moment, as if considering something before saying, "Keep in touch, why don't you?" My EVA suit flashed an indicator, showing that I'd just received a long-range comm code. It also showed several more integrity warnings. I needed to get inside, but first, a goodbye. "Of course, Socks. Such unqualified charity is a rarity these days, and despite what you may say, I remain in your debt. Can't do much, but if you ever need help, just ask." "All right, buddy. Talk to you soon." With that, he turned and walked away in the strange manner of bipedals. My suit had escalated to auditory alarms at this point, and I hurried inside the safe atmosphere of the ship. We launched a few minutes later, and I watched as the planet that could have so easily been my demise fall away below me. It seemed odd to me that anyone would choose to live there, especially someone as kind as Socks. But the galaxy was a strange place, filled with even stranger people. Socks and I kept in regular correspondence for years afterwards. They never did call in the favor I owed them, and I never found out what their promise was. We never even met each other face to face again. Despite this, we remained steadfast friends, and I now look back fondly on the accident that almost took my life. And, in my own small way, I've tried to pay forward the generosity and kindness a stranger once showed me on a cold and harsh world. End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed. There are links down below, both to support this channel and for the author of this fiction. Anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic one, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.